All right. Well, let's start this. You ready?
Ready.
Cue music. Hello, this is North of Normal, a podcast about Canadian cinema and our relationship with film. My name is Andrew Hunter Scholey, and today we are covering Hobo with a Shotgun, released in 2011, directed by Jason Eisner, and screenplay by John Davies. And today I am joined by none other than Spencer Allen Trout. Spencer, welcome back.
Glad to be here, Hunter.
So what's new since the last time we saw you on our FUBAR episode?
Not a whole heck of a lot. I got to see Hobo with a Shotgun. Admittedly, I just saw this film for the first time.
Yeah, well, okay, a little bit of background. Well, first, speaking of FUBAR, let's do the update. We got to meet Terry.
Yes, we did.
What was it, like 2 days after the episode landed?
Yeah, it was something. It was something like that. It was right, like within a week. It was within a week. It was just the stars aligned. I don't know what else to say.
And I feel really bad. I'm blanking on the actor's name. I shouldn't feel too bad because he was there in character. He was at the Propeller Arcade, which is kind of a local watering hole arcade around the corner here.
Yeah, literally around the corner from us. And interestingly enough, where I saw Hobo with the Shotgun for the first time. They were playing it in the basement there the other night, and we walked over to watch it.
Yeah, you were great. You got tickets. Now, I had seen Hobo with a Shotgun years ago. I think I saw it in the theater. I think I was living in Toronto at the time. I can't remember where. But I remember all the hype around it and stuff like that. But, yeah, well, this episode is a little bit different for a couple of reasons. Number one, we are actually in our apartment recording this episode.
Yes.
There is no Skylar or Hallie around keeping things going. So we'll see how this turns out. It's a little bit of an experiment. Hopefully the sound quality isn't too different. But,
Yeah.
Hey, we're doing what we can.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So, where to start, man? Like, you hadn't seen this. Now, you had obviously seen the trailers, like
Yes.
the fake trailer.
Yeah, the fake trailer, yeah.
Well, why don't you give a quick background about, the movie, how it was made, and just what the movie is about?
Well, now, see, the movie was made after the director put in a version of this film for the for Grindhouse. Now, I'm not sure exactly what the contest was, but the idea was
It was a fake trailer contest.
Yeah, it was a fake trailer contest, and the winner would be selected. I believe it was at South by Southwest or something like that, wasn't it?
Ooh, it might have been.
I can't recall like the exact details, but it was this kind of open competition, and this this trailer wound up making it. Now, I remember going and seeing Grindhouse when you could watch the two movies back to back, and they had all the trailers in between.
Yeah.
And sitting there through the whole thing, and that was like my takeaway favorite part of all those trailers was specifically Hobo with the Shotgun. Because everything else, it's like, okay, yeah, I know who this is. I know this voice. I know this. This was something where you knew no one in it. And it was absolutely over the top. Like, every line in it is solid gold. Like, I could probably recite them all off the top of my head right now. Like, it's just something that stuck with you, right?
Well, to explain, Rutger Hauer is not in the trailer.
He's not in the trailer. Oh, hi.
You got that? Let's get rid of the cat.
Hi.
Sorry, there was a little break. The cat seems to love the microphone stand that we're using and shoving her head into it.
Yes.
Run away, cat. That is my ancient cat, Squee, who also lives with us. She is 21 years old and dumb as a post.
And deaf, too, so we can yell at her all we want.
But she won't listen about anything. Okay, anyway, so we're talking about the trailer. So the trailer only aired in Canada. And Canadian releases of Grindhouse. So I don't know if they had a different one. Do you have any quick thoughts on Grindhouse?
Grindhouse, I mean, the Tarantino half is so enjoyable. I still like it.
Yeah.
I think the trailers were the highlights, and out of those...
They definitely were. More of those should have been made.
And out of that, I would say that, yeah, Hobo with the Shotgun was a standout. Now, it's one of those things, it's like, it's great as a 2-minute trailer. How good would it be as an hour-and-a-half long film?
Well, you tell me.
It was everything that I expected.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they shoehorned every line that was in that trailer into the film. So they were, like, faithful, in a sense, to their own trailer. It's so weird to kind
You
of
had mentioned that after the movie that you were really impressed with how well that trailer plays as a trailer for Hobo with a Shotgun.
Yeah, like they didn't change much. Like, yes, okay, well, the titular Hobo is played by Rutger Hauer, who's amazing in it.
We'll get back to Mr. Hauer.
Yeah, but it works as a trailer for that film.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that you're putting the cart before the horse here, sort of thing, right? And I guess that brought up a bunch of interest in seeing that made into an actual film because it was such a standout.
Yeah.
Right? And I honestly can't believe it took me this long to see this film, but I'm glad that I did, and I'm glad I got to see it where I did, with members of the cast there, like, sitting around us.
Yes, definitely. And again, this was at the Propeller Arcade, which is in our neighborhood. For those of you, well, I don't know if anybody outside of Halifax would really know, but we live in, to some people, called the North End of Halifax. Some people are snobby and maintain that you have to start, going up past North Street to be really in the North End. But most people consider this the North End.
Yeah,
we're at the very
north
bottom
of the
here.
Citadel, right? That's the North End.
Yeah, exactly.
For a lot of people.
And one thing that was cool about seeing this movie here, not only was it shot in Halifax, but it was shot in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
In and around our neighborhood. Like, it was fun. As I said, when I'd seen this when it was first released, it was in Toronto. I had no idea anything about Halifax, really. I think I had only been out to visit my sister maybe once at that point, maybe twice. And this time, yeah, like just for an example, like, literally a minute away, right around the corner, at this apartment. Again, we're recording in my place. I'm looking at Spencer and looking at a window that goes out of our back of our apartment. If you remove that apartment building, you would be able to see the pawn shop that plays very heavily in the movie.
Yeah.
And now that pawn shop is a very fancy restaurant. Yay for gentrification.
Yes.
For all its goods and ills. Apparently it's really good. I think I ate there once years ago with a girlfriend. But yeah, so that was really cool about this movie. Seeing that sort of grassroots thing, I think the budget was $3 million. Again, like so many of the movies that we cover on this show, a lot of the nitty-gritty details are kind of hard to come by, so I'm not sure, how much of this was government funded. I assume it wasn't self-funded. I mean, that's still a pretty big chunk of change.
Yes, it is.
But, okay, so now we've gone around the making and sort of the context of us watching this. The only thing to bring up that I thought was really cool is that the Propeller Arcade, it used to be a movie theater.
Yes.
And
yes.
I would love to, like, and now it's a arcade, but it's also a micro propeller brewing.
Yes. Hence
Hence why it's called the Propeller Arcade. And the arcade is kind of tucked in the basement where apparently the movie theater was. So I don't know what was upstairs. You said, Ian, the guy who runs the arcade, has photos. I would love to see how this place was laid out, because you can still see where the projection room is.
That's where the
and
actual
stuff like
bar
that.
is.
But it's really small and a low ceiling.
The bar in the arcade is where the projection booth once was.
So for those who haven't seen it, what is Hobo with the Shotgun? We've talked about this trailer, how it was made, but what is the movie?
It is an exploitation film in the truest sense of that word. It is. What more can I say? It's a homeless man of no fixed address who rides into town on the rails and tries to make the world a better place.
Now, to be fair, it is not Halifax where this movie takes place.
No.
Despite being filmed all in there. It is in a town called Hopetown, which, when the train rides into town, you quickly see that somebody has spray painted out Hope and written in scum for Scumtown. Pretty apt, I'd say.
Yeah. Oh, what you get, like, what you see with this film is kind of what you get. It's called Hobo with a Shotgun. I mean, that pretty much sums up this film. It's this hobo who's played by Rutger Hauer. Eventually, at one point, gets driven to a point where instead of getting a lawnmower and mowing lawns to make money, decides to buy a shotgun to dispense justice.
Because that's his dream.
Yeah.
He wants to buy a lawnmower, settle down, and make a landscaping business.
Yes.
We'll get to the scene in a bit, though, because this is his dream. Collecting change to save up this $49.95, is it?
Yeah, it's $49.99.
99
Yeah.
for this lawnmower. it's a typical exploitation sort of theme where he rolls into town and the town is corrupt. There's a gangster called, what was his name? Oh, the Drake.
The Drake.
Played by
yes.
Brian Downey. I don't know if you remember him. He was on Lex.
Oh, yeah.
He was kind of, I couldn't peg him, and then
Yeah.
afterwards when I was reading up, I'm like, oh my god, I remember Lex.
Yeah, I remember Lex.
That was such a
Jeez.
weird show.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's one of
yeah.
those shows that I don't know if I'd want to go back and rewatch it.
Yeah,
It was,
right?
for people that don't know, I think it was Canadian.
It was like a
definitely weird
Canadian.
sci-fi show
Yes.
that came
Yeah.
out
Oh, in the
late
90s? Oh,
mid-90s?
Yeah, mid-90s,
And it was show
I'd
on
say.
weird times. It wasn't like a prime time show, at least where I watched it. It would be on like City TV at random points during the day and stuff.
Yeah, I remember that would be on like Showcase on like Saturday afternoon or something ridiculous like that. You'd just be flipping through channels and be like, oh, hey, it's Lex. There
Yeah,
you
if
go.
you ever get around to doing TV shows, I very much doubt Lex will ever pop up on that list. There's too much to cover before that point. But yeah, he plays this guy called the Drake, and him and his two sleazy sons pretty much run the town.
Yeah.
Like, spoilers, they own the cops. The cops are corrupt, and they're kind of pushing people around. Lots of drugs. They run these bars where they openly like torture people.
Yeah, and
You
it seems
know?
like they're torturing like hobos too, right? Like that's kind of the thing. That's something
Yeah.
to build up like empathy for our character. There's very like rampant like violence against the homeless and displaced people.
It
in
does
this
have a lot
film,
to
right?
say, and again, we'll come back to that because that's
Yeah.
the thing that I think we should talk about. But I mean, like, the movie not opens up, but one of the very early scenes is rather one of the more infamous scenes in the movie where they execute people by this bizarre method of strapping a manhole cover
Yeah,
or a manhole covered shaped
collar.
collar.
Yeah,
At which point, and in the beginning of the movie, it's the Drake's brother, the uncle of these two sleazy kids of the Drakes. They are called Slick and Ivan. And Slick is very clearly the Drake's favorite out of the two.
Yeah.
He says this all the time. And they end up kicking him into a sewer main, so the head is just sticking out. And I seem to remember that they drive a car over the head, but no, they put a noose of barbed wire around.
and they pull the head off that way. Yeah,
Like, this is a sort of movie that we're dealing with here. And he's walking around, and there are, like, bum fights.
yeah.
Bum fight videos being made where they're
Yeah.
paying people, like, bums $10 to fight each other, which apparently was a thing.
I remember.
I don't know if that was an urban legend.
No, I worked at HMV, and people would come and order that, and we could
Jesus,
order it.
really?
Yes, and we could at one time. Eventually, that got canned because obviously that's like,
What, Faces of Death was too highbrow?
well, right? Like, it was ludicrous that people would be like, "Yeah, you know any of those bum fight videos?" And it was just
Why
like,
would you even want to
I
watch that? That's
don't-
so fucking horrible.
like you want now. See, we talk about this as like exploitative film. That is like exploitative film, like literally.
That is
You know,
exploitative, not exploitation cinema.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So we're not going to do a plot by plot breakdown, but we were just establishing what is the sense that you get of the town outside, like the normal people living. It seems to be that sort of just turn their head the other way and kind of pretend nothing's going on.
Oh, I think they're too scared to say anything
Yeah.
about it. That's what it is. Is that this is a town that is run. It's fear. It's
Yeah.
total fear. It's almost like the Detroit of RoboCop, like turned up to 20. And it was kind of like
And made for $20,
Yeah,
or it looks like it was
right,
made
yeah,
for $20,
exactly,
or
right,
it was
know?
bought for a dollar. See what I did there.
right, and it's just like it takes. It's such a great homage to those kind of trashy films of the, I'd say more the 80s than the 70s.
Yeah.
70s exploitation has a certain feel to it. This is much more 80s, and
Almost like it looks like it was shot on VHS.
yeah,
And it was kind of hard to tell, though, with the way that it was projected, too. Like, I can't remember how naturally degraded the film quality was, and it was kind of hard to tell with this projection. Not that the projection was bad, but you could easily make everything out. But, it was projected off of a computer. Don't get me wrong. I'll watch anything that were projected that way.
Yeah,
you know what
no,
I
for
mean?
sure.
Like, it was awesome.
But that's definitely the feeling that I got from
Yeah.
it. Is that kind of dystopia is very much so like an 80s like class of 1999 RoboCop type.
Yeah, exactly.
Dystopian future, but in the present, right?
Well, and as the movie sort of expands its world, I mean, I'll get this out of the way. There are scenes of attempted rape in this movie.
Yes.
But I mean, that sadly was a part of exploitation films.
Yes.
Of that ilk.
Yes. No,
was definitely there. So some of that I was kind of like, while watching. But myself, like the crowd, for the gory fun we were more or less down with it.
Oh, for the gory fun for sure. I mean, this is one of those films where you could come up with the most ridiculous, like cruel violence you could think of, like killing people with bumper cars.
Yeah.
Or, like, eventually we're going to talk about the school bus because that was such a big part of
and the making of it.
Making of the film,
yeah.
Right? It just like ridiculous, like baseball bats made out of razor blades. Like it's just it doesn't matter if it sticks to the wall or not. You can just make it stick to the wall.
Yeah.
Right? Like they took everything and just ran with it.
Now, before we move on with the movie, let's talk about the replicant in the room. Let's talk about Rutger Hauer. The rest of the cast does a commendable job. Most of them either at the time or went on to do various Canadian television roles. But Rutger Hauer, who originally at first turned down the film, actually I believe it was his agent that said, he wouldn't like this. But he forwarded on anyways, and Rutger Hauer apparently decided to take a call with James Eisner, the director. And apparently they just hit it off really well on the phone. Apparently they both like marine biology or something. So then Rutger Hauer reconsidered and agreed to do the movie. I would say, we both really like Rutger Hauer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's one of those dudes, pops up in a movie. We have actors like this that pop up a lot in this show where we just say, whenever this guy pops up, I'm down for this movie.
Yeah.
And ever since, like, myself, like most people, I'm pretty sure I first saw him in Blade Runner.
Yes.
As Roy Batty.
Yeah.
And arguably the best thing in that movie.
Yeah. No,
that and the art direction, I think, are the two best things in that movie, because it's not Harrison Ford sleepwalking.
No.
Through it at all. Harrison Ford with his "I don't want to be here" face, which he would later on perfect to a T in his later career. But I've really enjoyed Rutger Hauer ever since. Like, even when when I go back and watch, where is he from? The Netherlands. When I go back and watch some of the films that he made with director Paul Verhoeven.
Yeah.
I think Paul Verhoeven did Spetters, which is if you want to talk about 80s, like a dirt bike movie that Rutger Hauer was in. Like, you go out and find these roles, and even when he's in not so great movies, or in this case, intentionally not so great movies, he's always great in them. And really, he is what makes this movie. He totally sells this Hobo. He is 100% sincere in his performance. If you had anybody without his acting chops, or somebody that was playing the role ironically, I think this movie would actually be unwatchable.
That's totally fair. I would have liked to have seen the original casting of the Hobo in this. I would have enjoyed that. I would have liked to have seen that.
Apparently, he had health issues, and that's why he could have. But I think he plays a police chief or something in the movie.
Yeah, he's in it.
He is in it briefly.
Yeah, but again, I don't know if that film would be as watchable as this is, because Rutger Hauer gives a very humanizing, very complex. He's probably the most complex thing in this film.
Oh,
really?
Definitely. It's weird that the Hobo with the shotgun is not a broad character.
Yeah.
And sometimes they do play his sort of weird dementia that he has. Like, he's not loopy crazy all the time, but there's something off about him, a little bit delusional. And I mean, one of the plot points is that very early in the film, he saves and befriends a local prostitute, who, after he gets kind of carved up by the two sleazy sons of the Drake, she takes him in and kind of heals him. And he has these wonderfully bizarre soliloquies about her, and just decides that she should be a teacher, and somehow convinces her that she wants to get in on the landscaping business.
Yeah.
With the lawnmower. But the actress is, the prostitute is portrayed as very bright and lively and intelligent. You know what I mean? And like a very compassionate figure.
That's the thing, is that I think most characters in this film, like, there are no... Every character in this film is either homeless or on the verge of it, a prostitute, or a gangster. Like, there's
Yeah.
not really anything outside
Or
of
a
this.
corrupt cop.
Well, yeah, which I would
Or
call him a
a
gangster,
politician who's corrupt. So yeah.
I said that's
A
gangsters.
bad guy.
and
This
yeah,
movie
exactly.
is about, what, 90% bad guys?
Oh, easy.
Yeah.
Easy.
Is there anything else you want to get into before we start diving into more of the film?
I think it's funny that watching that movie where it was filmed,
Yeah.
right? Because that whole area is in this film,
Yeah.
and to see how much it's changed. Like, my first time in Halifax was in 2012, so it would have been a year or two after this movie was filmed. And from then until now, how much it has changed is
for sure. There were so many
amazing.
scenes that I was like, I think that was filmed here. Like, the only reason why I knew that the shop was what is now Edna is that it's come up overhearing other people talk at the Local, which is a pub right across the road.
Yes.
And you can see Edna from the window. And I've overheard other people say, hey, Hobo with the Shotgun was filmed there? That was the... the not convenience store, the pawn shop.
Yeah.
And so I knew to watch out for that, and so that was bright as day. But like the neighborhood at the very beginning, I think is that neighborhood. When you walk, I don't drive, so I'm shit with street names. But you cut down through that residential neighborhood down to where the little church is that goes down to.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right about how the neighborhood has changed. It definitely puts another fascinating sort of thing on it. Now, just as context, did you ever watch a lot of exploitation films?
No, not as such. No.
No. I mean, I would here and there. It's not a genre that I would go out of my way for. It's not like there's one that, like Hicksploitation or something like that. I've seen a lot of the big blaxploitation films and some of the other more schlocky ones, but I think I've seen enough to understand that this one really plays out a lot like a genuine sort of exploitation film. So, you're right. What happens is that things gradually escalate in the film. Rutger Hauer, our homeless gentleman, who in the movie is never given a name. What happens to push him over the edge again?
He's going in to buy the lawnmower.
The lawnmower, yes. And the robbery happens.
There's a robbery that happens, and so he gets the shotgun, which is conveniently the same price.
There's a great shot. It's one of my favorite shots of the entire movie.
Yes.
He looks at the shotgun in the wall, and what is the price?
$49.99.
And then he looks at the lawnmower. What's the price?
$49.99.
Looks up, looks down, grabs the shotgun.
Grabs the shotgun.
And I like how in that instance he's so honest. It's not like he would steal the shotgun.
Yeah.
Like he's like, no, he's going to take it and then pay for it or use it and stop the robbery of this guy's place and then just go. It's almost like he just at that point buys totally in and he is going to do what he can.
Absolutely.
And at that point he stops the robbery and he becomes, what do they start calling him? The police start covering him because he starts going out and kind of openly waging war on almost any crime he can see. They kind of imply at one point that he even shot somebody that stole a newspaper out of a vending machine. But most of them are robberies and stuff like that. Talk about some of the things that he gets up to while I look this up.
Well, he says one of my favorite lines of the film, which is, "I'm going to sleep in your bloody carcasses tonight," as he blows the guys away in the pawn shop. And just ridiculous. We're not talking there's nothing subtle about this film. Again, the most complex thing in this film is Rutger Hauer himself. And it's the better for it, I would say. Because he does that. The guy who's filming the bum fights, how he gets his $50 is actually partaking in one of those videos. Then he goes back and dispenses justice one shell at a time.
That is one of the better taglines. And it's really funny because local Canadian TV personality, news personality, George Stroumboulopoulos plays the news guy.
Yeah.
Which is another weird, little piece of Canadiana in there. So, all right. We're going to talk about two specific vehicles for a second. Because things quickly escalate. And the Drake decides he's going to send his sons out and give a clear message who runs the town. The first vehicle I want to address, though, isn't the controversial one. What the F are the two sons driving around in?
Oh, that looks like somebody pieced together the remains of a DeLorean. I'm not a gearhead.
It's like a poor man's DeLorean. It looks like a DeLorean crossed with a
like
Tylenol.
or like yeah, it's like your shitty souped up Civic, but it's like a DeLorean instead. I don't know how else to put it. It's an abomination. We'll say that.
Yeah.
But it's catchy, right? It has that it works so well with their characters and the Drakes of like that white leather sunglasses, like shitty sports car. Like it's great.
Yeah. Kind of like poor taste, too much money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they decided that this was a message that they were going to send, but this scene, I believe I read somewhere that the director said put off the movie being released for about 3 years.
Oh, God.
Because they would show it and people would insist that they wanted this scene cut. And he outright refused. And this scene is that one of the sons, is it Ivan?
It's both of them.
Oh, yes, because what is he...
One of them's carrying the boombox and listening to Disco Inferno.
Disco Inferno, and no way around it if you haven't seen this. He just straight up blowtorches an entire school bus full of children who look like they're 7 or 8.
Oh yeah, like they're.
He goes in and he's like, "Hey
young.
kids, you like school?" And they're like, "Yay!" Then he asks them another question, and they get cheery. And then he goes, "Do you like blowtorches or you like fire?"
He's like, "Do you like hobos?" And they're like, "Yeah."
Yeah,
That's what, like
that's
sends them over the edge, right? And yeah, they proceed to, clear it out like a pillbox.
I was going to say you don't actually see the children burning, but no, there is a shot of the back of the bus when it's on fire where you see a child pounding on the back window. That is the most over-the-top scene in the film.
Oh well, yeah, and again, it's a film where they said like it's like, what can we do? What's the most out there thing that we can do? And that is like it. That is it.
So, I don't know. There's not too much reason in going into too much of the plot, really. I mean, shenanigans ensue.
Yeah.
You know, they kind of fight back and forth. Abby, the prostitute friend, ends up being attacked by, I think, one of the brothers instead in the hospital.
Yes, yeah.
So that leads to what is visually the most impressive scenes of the entire movie. This is where the movie kind of shifts. This is where the third act begins.
Yes.
The second act begins when he gets the shotgun. So you got the second good chunk of the movie where it's Hobo with the shotgun shenanigans. He does say at one point, "I'm just a hobo with a shotgun."
Yeah.
So he does say the title of the movie, and everybody cheered in the theater when he says that line. Again, Rutger Hauer is just so damn earnest in this role. So then one of the sons gets killed. Yeah. God, it's amazing even after a couple of days how blurry this movie becomes.
It's not Ivan, it's the other one.
Slick, the favorite one.
Slick, the favorite one. His favorite son dies, right? So then Ivan's also on the warpath, like, make himself up to his dad as well as, like, avenge his brother, as it were.
So in the third act, the movie kind of really shifts gears because the Drake wanting to stop this end, like, once and for all, hires these two guys called the Plague, which I guess are mercenaries of some sort. I wouldn't even call them hitmen. They're like walking paths of destruction.
They're like Bebop and Rocksteady. Like they're just
in giant metal tins.
Just like it's like the
they have like
Man.
harpoon hands.
It's like the Tin Man, like but like War Machine. You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah. But it's the most impressive. Like this is where it starts shooting heavily in like Dutch angles and really getting inventive when they go into the hospital to kill the hobo who's in there visiting Abby. But they're just on a warpath. Like these giant hulking armors, like something you would see of like a kind of well-made cosplay of like steampunk armor at a middle to lower rung Comic-Con. So they start doing their warpath through the hospital. And like I said, this is impressive. The way it's shot. They start experimenting with color a little bit more, weird lighting. But they're going through and they have this method. And this is the thing. It's like in zombie movies where I say a good zombie movie will always have like a zombie kill that you've never seen before.
Right.
And you can be like, oh, that's great. That's cool. Like, I won't go into details, but there are really bad zombie movies like Dance of the Dead and Flight of the Living Dead that were saved by some really kind of inventive zombie shit. And this goes over the top because they're killing orderlies, and after they kill everybody through various means, they harpoon them and then shoot them up into the ceiling by strings.
They have the noose on the end of the harpoon, so the harpoon goes up into the ceiling, and they're left dangling, like strangling.
Yeah, and so they're literally leaving like meat, like just halves of cows in a slaughterhouse down these hallways. These people, it's grotesque as hell, but it's visually impressive, and I'm like watching that, being like, yeah, that's different. Like, that is actually creative, as before where they're like razor blades and baseball bats and just like hitting people and guts falling out. These guys, I think they saved the creative kills for these guys just to be like, oh shit. Like, these guys are just literally leaving a trail of dead behind them.
In a movie of brutality and carnage, they are the true artists of it.
It's one of the funniest scenes of the entire movie is right before you know that the plague are going into the hospital. But there's a random scene where Rutger Hauer is walking along, and I swear to God these only exist in movies. I've never seen them in real life. He comes across a sort of, what is it, a natal room?
Like
a post-birth showroom?
Yeah.
We've all seen it probably in movies where people are standing behind a wall of glass and they just have all the babies out. Like, just in boxes for people to look at. And I don't know if this exists in real life. Maybe it was a 60s thing. Like, who knows?
Yeah,
Let's go look at the babies. But, and he has this really awesome, soliloquy about the kids, about how we were once all pure and unbroken. Oh, that's what he says, hobo with a shotgun. It's like, hopefully you won't grow up to be me, a hobo with a shotgun. Again, audience erupts. Everybody was super into it. Oh, yeah, and then the plague descend upon the hobo and they capture him.
Yes.
You know, they take him away. Around this time, Abby recovers, and, you know, you basically get her, like, calling her arms together. And this is where the whole homeless thing kind of comes into context, because a huge crowd starts gathering around. Like, are they going to attack her?
Well, I know one of the big reasons why they kill that school bus full of kids is afterwards they're like, this will happen every day unless if you kill every hobo around, right?
It's a movie that gets spotty really quickly after you watch it.
Because, like, I think you're just so bombarded with, like, just ridiculous imagery, that like the finer points, the quote-unquote finer points of it just kind of fall away, right?
So, not to get into too many details, let me get this out of the way. I like Hobo with the Shotgun. It's a movie that I'm glad is in the universe. I'm glad these guys got to make this movie.
Absolutely.
You know. Am I ever going to watch it again? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean,
I never had an urge to rewatch it before you randomly bought tickets and asked me to go.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know,
that's fair.
But, you know, if any of this sounds interesting to you, watch it. Watch it just for the low-budget wonderfulness of it and Rutger Hauer performance. If you like Rutger Hauer and you've never seen this, check it out.
Well, you know what? It's one of those films, if you haven't seen it, see it. If you enjoy, like, if you enjoy film just for pure entertainment value, it is an entertaining film.
Yeah.
It's an entertaining film. It is a very violent film. It is, like, its art has poor taste, and it's as far down that as you can get. But see it. Absolutely.
And so what Abby does is that she arms the townspeople, basically. So they're all going to go take down the Drake once and for all and save the hobo. Because we didn't really touch upon this. The hobo kind of becomes a TV celebrity, right? And people start, like, cheering him on, being like, yeah, you know, good thing somebody's doing it. Hence why they decide to send the message of the school bus.
Right.
Because they don't want people covering for it, basically. Big end fight. Abby fights the plague. They end up killing the plague.
Yeah.
Pretty creative deaths there. And then they end up bringing down the Drake. Don't they do the Hubcat, the collar thing to him too?
Yeah, the collar.
So, and Ivan died at one point before this, his other son. And the movie ends with the police breaking into the place and surrounding and, well, basically Rutger Hauer refuses to acquiesce and they kill him.
Yep. Spoiler alert, yes, the hobo dies, but you know the hobo's going to die. You know there's only kind of one way that this
And then
film
end
ends.
credits.
Then the citizens turn on the cops, right?
Yes.
So it's kind of like, no, it's like they've had enough of the Drake, they've had enough of these crooked cops. You know, they're starting to clean up, and you know, there's kind of this martyrdom of the hobo, right?
Yeah. And then we assume that the town becomes a better place with the Drake removed.
Right.
So we've pretty much come to verdict. You know, what our opinions are of Hobo with the Shotgun. Do you have anything to touch upon the homelessness aspect? If there's anything that this movie has to say, it is our relationship with the homeless and how they're treated.
Absolutely. No, that's, I mean, when you're making an exploitation film, it can only kind of be based on some kind of, I don't even want to use the word downtrodden. I'm not sure what
Oppressed.
Yeah, but like there's so much to oppression, and oppression is such a broad term. Like you wouldn't think there's. It's almost like it almost has to be the homeless in North America.
Yeah.
You know, like that's perfect. That covers, just from an intersectional point of view, that covers so much different people, all kind of in this one group, right?
Yeah.
And I think like the inclusion of something like bum fights is perfect. That gets your point across perfectly. Like, don't get me wrong, this is a schlocky film.
Yeah.
But again, like it's art in poor taste, right? And I really enjoy that. And is it in and of itself exploitive? Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I think it is. I think there's definitely stuff in it that I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much I necessarily like it, but that's not really necessarily the point.
Yeah.
I like it. I think it in spite of itself, does have something to say. I don't think I wouldn't take it as the gospel.
I think a few smart little things creep in.
Oh, for sure.
You know, like at the beginning, one of the reasons why he's able to get away with all the stuff that he does is that people just don't notice him.
Yeah.
He's just in the background pushing around his cart, collecting tins and whatever, to sell off and whatever. And some of the kind of fun of the kills comes from the whole aspect of people just don't take him seriously.
Yeah.
They're like, who the fuck are you? Get out of here. You know what I mean? And then obviously he whips out the shotgun and stuff like that. So it's kind of, I guess in most exploitation films, at least the one that I've seen, the downtrodden figure or whatever is still played as being cool. Whereas this is a homeless down on his luck guy. There's nothing, air quotes, cool about him.
Yeah.
Not saying that homeless people aren't cool. You know what I mean? But, like he is this downtrodden, broken individual with these sort of broken dreams. There is something, it's absurd but touching when he's making that soliloquy.
Oh, for sure.
To the babies in the natal ward. That's what they're called. But again, it's 100% Rutger Hauer's earnestness that sells every single little bit of it, and I can't say that enough. Okay, so as I said, like Hobo with the Shotgun, just fine. There is something that I love, that I only feel fitting to talk about on this show because it was director Jason Eisner's kind of short that he did before. When I was reading it, was referred to as a, quote, calling card film, which is kind of, it's a term used to describe a short feature that an aspiring director makes to kind of put his name out there, to kind of show what he can do. Again, I love this. I hadn't seen it until just before we went to see Hobo with the Shotgun. You fired it up on the YouTube. I think there's a better version on Vimeo. It is a wonderful little artifact called Treevenge.
Treevenge. Yeah.
That is tree as in the tree. If you walk to your window and look outside, you will see a tree. And venge as in revenge or vengeance. I watched this and when you watch something and you see it and you kind of feel like even though that the filmmakers didn't know you at all, they kind of made it for you.
it touches you in a way that only art can. Yes.
Yes, even art like this. Let's talk democratization of the arts. You know,
100%.
this is a wonderful, wonderful work. Do you have anything you want to say about Treevenge? Do you want to describe it?
Treevenge, if you see...
It is a short film.
It is a short film.
It runs about 16 minutes.
Yeah, about 16 minutes, yes. I, capital L, loved the original Hobo with the Shotgun trailer.
Yes.
And most of the best aspects of that were put into this film. From the actors, the delivery, the editing, the shots, the soundtrack, it's incredible.
Yeah.
It is really incredible. For 16 minutes to have like an arch like that, like just to go from like point A to point B and just
but
go
Spencer,
bonkers.
What is Treevenge about? This is why it is amazing. It is very competently made. Extremely well done what they have. Should I say it?
Go for it.
For those who haven't seen it, and if you like weird fringe culty cinema, please, for God's sakes, track this down. You can easily see it for free. It opens up in a Christmas tree farm.
Yes.
Where Christmas trees are being cut down and judged. The bad ones are being tossed aside, chipped, burned, while the good trees are being sent away to be sold as Christmas trees. The only catch here is that the trees are alive. And not alive as in that trees are alive. They are emotional, sentient beings. And this movie is being played up like it is almost like a slave auction. I know that sounds in horrible taste. For me, this works. And I'm a pretty PC sort of guy. I do have limits for what I watch. But there are scenes that literally seem like a cross between slave rings and like Holocaust footage. Like when you watch not real footage, but films of those things.
I think this is the closest that you could come to making like exploitation about either. It's like this. There's this great line from Mel Brooks. There's a great line from Mel Brooks where he this was in response to criticism over Blazing Saddles. He's like, I would never show a black man being lynched. Just like I would never make a joke about the Holocaust. I'll make a joke about the Nazis.
And make a joke about Hitler.
And about Hitler. But I'm not going to do it about Auschwitz. Right? And that's the gist of what he was saying. And I think that's as... God, we're making this film sound worse than it is.
We're only talking about the intro.
But this is like, you don't... I think that's as... I don't want to say it's a stand-in for either of those events.
No.
I'm not... Because it's not.
But it's using that sort of imagery.
Yeah.
The style of imagery. Not the literal imagery, but the style of imagery of how those things are portrayed in other films.
Yes.
But being used on Christmas trees.
It's film language in its truest sense in that regard.
Thank you for wording it that way, because I think you got us out of a lot of trouble by talking about... But that's part of the brilliance of this film.
Yes.
And I use that term 100% earnestly, because then they show, like, people shopping for the trees and kind of judging them, you know, and kind of moving on with the little kids being, Daddy, Daddy, I want this one. And then you see multiple trees being put into homes and being decorated, but there's almost a fetishistic way that they're hanging ornaments on them, and the tree's reaction
and there's
to being adorned.
Fetishistic scene involving one of the trees.
Yes. And, well, it's called Treevenge. Eventually, the trees get revenge during the holidays. They decide they're going to fight back en masse, and it is gore-tastic glory. Tree kills, and there's nothing gross like an Evil Dead. You know? Well, not really. We're talking about the one tree scene.
Yeah.
Not in terms of the gore, but the tree scene in Evil Dead. But I'll be honest here. This is why I think this movie was made for me, because number one, it's indie as fuck, and I love seeing things made on a shoestring budget. The tree effects are fantastic.
Oh, beautiful! You can tell it's just like someone shaking them for the most
part.
Sometimes,
but then there are actual practical effects
where it's like, yes, like the, for lack of a better term, the like weaving sewing face to face scene. Like that's incredible. That is incredible.
That has your favorite line in the movie. What is it?
What
You cracked up hard when we were watching it.
We both laughed pretty hard at it. What was it? No, it's Christmas. I just want to fuck, I think is the line.
Yeah, because they're making out on the couch. Because, again, it follows various families in different scenarios in the way that the trees enact revenge. It is so good. And the effects, you can tell this guy watched a lot of, like, Evil Dead as a kid. Because the scene where, it basically... Does it go in the woman's mouth?
Yes.
And then, like, outer eyeball.
Yeah.
And the practical effect of the eyeball. And then it goes into the guy that she was making out with.
Yeah, it goes into
So
his
there's
eye.
a sewing effect. And again, like, I've seen Sam Raimi films. I've seen these low-budget horror films. But again, I'm like, I have not seen this shit before. And I'll just be serious here for a second. I don't really like Christmas. I loved it as a kid. I think it is a holiday for children. But... And as I get older and being around Christmas and not having kids myself, not really spending a lot of time around kids, and like I said, I do really believe Christmas is a family or children's holiday. Sure. And I don't criticize people who like it. It's just not for me. I would rather snap my fingers and have the holidays done with every year. And I think I think there are a lot more people like me out there than are willing to speak up. And... Like I said, I don't spend a lot of time around kids. I'm not really a kid person that much. I've only... Jason Eisner, I don't think has gone on to direct anything else. He kind of moved into production and kind of screenwriting and stuff like that afterwards. But man, from his two movies, two things that I can take away is that it really looks like the dude doesn't A, like Christmas, and B, does not like children. Between Hobo with the Shotgun and this movie, because he pulls no punches with the children in Treevenge.
Well, you know when they talk about things like you can't kill pets and you can't kill kids in horror movies, that kind of there's that kind of trope, right?
Yeah.
In this one, like the first victim is a child, like.
And I'm not. I don't want it to sound like I'm gleefully like sitting there being like, "Kill the children, kill the children."
It's iconoclastic, and I love that about this film. Is that that's what this film is? Is that using film language and using a preposterous, like absolutely bonkers concept. It tackles things like how we depict slavery narratives, how we depict the Holocaust on film, and taboos in horror film.
Yes.
And just like uses that to his advantage.
And kind of how people can be really shitty and materialistic around the holidays.
Yes. 100%.
And it's materialized in the scenes of them being so ignorant that they're torturing these living creatures for their own aesthetics for the quote-unquote happiest time of the year.
Yeah. Oh, no,
it's amazing.
It is. It's absolutely incredible.
And like I said, it's 16 free minutes of your time.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't have too much more to say about Treevenge. I was just so blown away by it when we watched it before going to see Hobo with the Shotgun. That...
Jonathan Torrance. What more can I say?
Oh, yes. He's the father of one of the families.
Yeah.
Again, for people who are not Canadian, another person comes up on this podcast that people are going to be like, who?
Yeah.
But if you've watched Trailer Park Boys, he's in Trailer Park Boys.
He's in Trailer Park Boys. If you remember from John O'Vision and Street Sense on CBC.
But that would be very Canadian. I'm trying to think about anyone outside of Canada where they might have seen him.
Yeah.
Probably only Trailer Park Boys.
Well, it was like we're saying that the Drake's brother is Ricky from Trailer Park Boys, but again, unless, you know...
Oh, yeah, it was, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, that's why people...
I just didn't see him as Randy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
okay.
Yeah, it's Randy.
And just to tie in, let's bring it in a loop. We started talking about meeting Terry from Trailer Park Boys. He's in town because he's off shooting a new season of Trailer Park Boys.
Yeah.
So good on him, man.
Good on him, yeah.
He's going to be in character. He will be Terry in it. I maybe watched the first 2 seasons of Trailer Park Boys. I had no idea they were even still making that show.
Yeah, well, I know that they started making it again. I'm unabashedly a huge fan of the first few that they originally did on Showcase and that. Like I love those. I remember coming home and watching those on Sunday nights. But
okay, well, since we've worked in Treevenge, do you have anything else to say about Treevenge? I think we covered it.
You know what? If you don't feel like you can put in the hour and a half for the film Hobo with the Shotgun, put in the less than 20 minutes. Watch the Grindhouse trailer, which is a gem.
Good point.
And watch Treevenge. You can watch them both for free right now. Stop this podcast. Go watch those for free right now.
Or listen to the next minute. And then go and watch. Because really quickly, I mean... final question of the podcast. What do you think these movies say about Canada?
You know, we like to say that we're a peaceful nation. That is bogus. We are just as violent as any other Western power. We have a dark history of violence. It's very imperialistic, and we still deal with it on film. We still watch these movies, and we still love them. As base as they are, we watch them, we love them, and we're proud that we make them, so that doesn't make us any better than anyone else.
We also do subversive and black humor just as well as anyone is when we're given the chance.
Bingo bongo.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, Spencer?
Support local film.
All right. I see a trend. Yeah, so thank you everyone for joining us for this impromptu episode. It was kind of patched together. Like I said, Hobo with the Shotgun kind of chose us. We didn't choose Hobo with the Shotgun. When you get to see a Canadian film like that, you might as well talk about it afterwards.
Agreed.
Alrighty, folks. North of Normal is a product of Eldritch Creative, which can be found on Facebook at Eldritch Creative and Instagram at eldritch.creative. This show can be found at North of Normal on Facebook and on Instagram at North of Normal Pod. Intro music is by Dad vs. Son out of Hamilton, Ontario. That's it for now. Be seeing you.